Hey and welcome to my YouTube channel. I am Six Path Weeb. And if you think you've seen chaos before, wait till you step into this one. Today's fanfic takes a wild turn. What if Naruko met Cynthia in the Pokémon world? Part 2. Two legends. Two worlds. One absolutely unhinged crossover waiting to happen. Disclaimer, the content on this channel is for entertainment and discussion purposes only. I do not own any of the anime footage used in my videos. All rights and credits go to their respective creators and copyright holders. Now, let's get into it. The first time Naruko met Cynthia's grandmother was before either of them had even decided they wanted to begin dating. The Sinnoh champion had invited her on a trip to meet her scientifically brilliant grandmother, so Naruko could learn more about Dialga and Palkia. She had accepted, of course. Cynthia had offered to pay for the flight, which also meant meals were covered. Even if airplane food was only so-so, it still felt like a small adventure gift. When they arrived at the laboratory, after a long and slightly bumpy flight that left Naruko a little dazed, a short woman with brown blonde hair stepped forward to greet them. She introduced herself warmly as Professor Carolina. Naruko politely offered her hand in greeting. After shaking it, the professor studied her with sharp curiosity, then turned to Cynthia with a perfectly calm expression. "You two are remembering all the proper travel safety rules, right?" Both Naruko and Cynthia blinked at the same time, then immediately agreed a little too quickly, which made the moment feel even more awkward. Cynthia's grandmother simply nodded as if that answer was exactly what she expected. That was also the first time Naruko realized that Cynthia's family had a very unique way of making introductions feel like science experiments. The first time Naruko met Cynthia's spiritomb, it was, to put it simply, unforgettable. It was so unforgettable that Naruko mentally filed it under her personal list of most unexpectedly embarrassing moments, a list she absolutely refused to show anyone. It had happened after Naruko won the Sinnoh Cup and earned the right to challenge the Elite Four. To celebrate, Cynthia had invited her for ice cream. Naruko, of course, insisted that ramen was still better than anything frozen in a cup. Cynthia disagreed, just as firmly. Their friendly argument continued all the way to a quiet, cozy spot in Cynthia's home. Naruko had just opened her mouth to declare ramen victorious once again when a small, floating shape appeared in front of her. It was purple and green, gently swirling like a tiny storm made of mist. Naruko froze. She blinked once. Then she politely said, "Hello." The spiritomb drifted closer and gave a soft, echo-like greeting in return, as if it were simply curious and friendly. Naruko let out a very undignified squeak and stepped back so quickly she nearly tipped her chair over. Cynthia, completely calm, simply said, "Oh, I should have introduced you earlier. This is Spiritomb." Spiritomb floated happily in place, clearly pleased to meet her. Naruko slowly sat back down, holding her chest. Right. Of course. Normal day. Very normal. After a moment, she even managed a nervous laugh while Spiritomb circled her like it had just made a new friend. Ghost Pokémon, she decided, were far more social than she had expected. The first time Naruko battled Cynthia, she lost. It wasn't a harsh loss. It wasn't a crushing defeat. But it was enough to show Naruko just how strong Cynthia truly was. When Naruko's partner, Seika the Ninetales, finally became too tired to continue the match, Naruko's heart sank. She rushed forward immediately, worry filling her voice. "I'm sorry, Seika. I should have done better." Seika lifted her head and gently bumped Naruko's arm, as if telling her to stop worrying so much. Her eyes were steady and calm, full of quiet determination. "9, Seika said softly, as if reminding Naruko that this was just another step in their journey. Naruko took a steady breath and nodded. "You're right. We'll train more, learn more, and next time we'll be even stronger. Together." At the Pokémon Center, Nurse Joy reassured Naruko that Seika would be perfectly fine after some rest and care. Naruko bowed her head slightly. "Thank you for taking care of her." A little later, Cynthia arrived, her presence calm but attentive. "How is she?" Cynthia asked gently. "She'll be okay," Naruko replied, letting out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "She just needs rest." Cynthia smiled with understanding. "That sounds like her. Strong and determined." Naruko gave a small grin in return. "Yeah. She's amazing." There was a quiet pause between them, not awkward, just thoughtful. Naruko looked at Cynthia, then added sincerely, "You really are incredible as a trainer. I'm glad I get to learn from you." Cynthia's expression softened. And I think I'm glad I get to learn from you too. In that moment, it wasn't about winning or losing. It was about growing stronger, side by side, step by step, on their journeys forward. The first time Naruko realized just how popular Cynthia was when she had taken Cynthia out for ice cream, again, as friends, at least that is what Naruko kept telling herself, and just as they stepped outside the shop, they were met by a wave of excited fans and flashing cameras. Naruko had been slightly overwhelmed by the sudden crowd, but Cynthia moved through it with calm confidence. She smiled politely, signed a few autographs, and gently guided Naruko through the gathering so they would not get separated. When they finally reached a quieter place and the security staff helped create space between them and the crowd, Naruko noticed how many people were still watching Cynthia, especially some of the boys in the group. A small, unfamiliar feeling stirred in her chest. It was not the same feeling she had when she competed with friends or rivals. This one felt sharper and more confusing, like a knot she could not easily untie. Naruko frowned slightly, quietly paying for both of their ice creams again, as she always seemed to do when they went out together. Why did she feel like this? When Cynthia returned outside and continued kindly signing autographs and smiling for everyone, Naruko found herself watching a little more closely than usual. And that strange new feeling both puzzled her and made her quietly uneasy. XX. The first time Naruko held Cynthia's hand was a month after her big victory. There had been talk of a rare sighting near Lake Acuity, of a legendary Pokémon said to guard knowledge and memory. The idea fascinated Naruko. The thought of forgotten memories and hidden stories made her curious in a way she could not explain. So when Cynthia invited her to come along, Naruko agreed almost immediately. The sighting, however, turned out to be only a rumor. Still, the lake at night was real, and far more beautiful than Naruko had expected. The water reflected the moon like a silver mirror, and tiny lights from Volbeat and Illumise drifted above the surface like glowing lanterns in a dream. The entire place felt peaceful, as if the world had slowed down just for them. Naruko, filled with excitement, gently grabbed Cynthia's hand without thinking and started leading her forward. "Come on, Cynthia. You have to see this," she said eagerly, her voice bright with wonder. Cynthia gave a soft sigh, but she did not pull her hand away. Instead, she adjusted her pace and walked beside Naruko through the grass. "It is late, Naruko," Cynthia said gently, though there was no real complaint in her tone. Naruko just smiled wider. "It is worth it. Trust me." By the time they reached the lake's edge, Naruko finally slowed down. The view made her pause completely. The reflection of the sky shimmered on the water, and the soft glowing lights danced like stars that had fallen just a little too close to the earth. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Naruko only then realized something that made her heart skip a little: Cynthia was still holding her hand. Warmth spread across Naruko's face as she looked down at their joined hands, then quickly glanced back up at Cynthia. Cynthia was watching the lake calmly, her expression peaceful, almost thoughtful. In that quiet moment, she seemed even more distant and elegant than usual. Naruko swallowed and looked away again, suddenly unsure of what to say. After a few seconds of silence, Naruko spoke softly. I really like spending time with you." Cynthia turned her head slightly, surprised for just a moment, then smiled in a gentle way that made Naruko feel calmer right away. "I like spending time with you too, Naruko," she replied kindly, giving Naruko's hand a small reassuring squeeze. Naruko's heart felt lighter, though she still did not fully understand why. She took a breath, then said honestly, "I think I would like to get even closer to you." Cynthia blinked, then let out a soft, warm laugh, not teasing, but sincere. "We can take things one step at a time," she said. Naruko nodded quickly, feeling both relieved and happy at the same time. Just then, a couple of Volbeat fluttered nearby in a playful spiral, as if inviting them to join their glowing dance above the water. The sudden movement startled Naruko enough that she stumbled slightly, breaking the moment and making both of them laugh. Cynthia gently steadied her, still holding her hand. Naruko smiled, a little embarrassed but genuinely happy. As they walked back along the lake together, Naruko did not let go of Cynthia's hand. And Cynthia did not let go either. Under the quiet glow of the night, it felt like the beginning of something new and gentle, something neither of them fully understood yet, but both were willing to discover together. Cynthia had a way of handling even the most confusing, awkward, or downright ridiculous situations as if they were nothing more than a passing breeze. Naruko often wondered how someone could remain so composed when everything around them felt like it was spinning out of control. And today, Naruko was about to find out, again, That she still had no idea. Earlier that afternoon, Naruko had rushed into Cynthia's temporary lodging with her usual energetic enthusiasm, balancing a small bag of treats she had brought to share. In her haste, she forgot a very important rule of manners: always knock first. What happened next was a moment so unexpected that Naruko's brain seemed to pause completely. She froze in place, her expression turning stiff with shock and embarrassment at barging in at the wrong moment during a private, harmless situation of getting ready for the day. Nothing improper, just an unfortunate misunderstanding of timing. Her eyes widened. Cynthia looked up, just as composed as ever. Naruko immediately backed out, shutting the door with a sharp, panicked bow. "I am so sorry," she called through the door, her voice cracking slightly as she retreated down the hallway. Now she stood in the living area, pacing in circles like a wind-up toy that couldn't stop spinning. She covered her face with both hands. "Oh no, oh no, oh no. I can't believe I did that." When she finally worked up the courage to return, she carried the bag of treats like an offering of peace. She bowed so deeply the bag nearly tipped forward. "I'm really sorry," Naruko blurted out in a rush. "I didn't knock, I should have knocked. I brought snacks as an apology, and I completely understand if you want me to leave forever." Cynthia simply blinked at her for a moment, then gave a small, knowing smile. "It's fine," she said calmly. Naruko froze. That single word didn't compute. "Excuse me?" she asked, blinking rapidly. "It's fine," Cynthia repeated, a little more gently this time. Naruko slowly lowered the bag. "But I interrupted you. That was really rude of me. Aren't you upset?" Cynthia tilted her head slightly, genuinely puzzled by the question. "No. It was an honest mistake." Naruko stared at her like she had just witnessed a miracle. "You're not going to be angry?" "Why would I be?" Cynthia asked simply. Naruko exhaled in relief so strong it almost turned into a laugh. "I really like my life the way it is, so I'm very glad we're not upset with each other." Cynthia accepted the peace offering of snacks and began organizing them neatly on the table, as if nothing unusual had happened at all. Naruko watched her for a moment in quiet amazement. "You really are incredible, you know that?" Cynthia glanced over. "Thank you." Naruko hesitated, then added honestly, "I think I really admire you. You're so calm all the time. It makes everything feel easier." Cynthia gave a small, thoughtful smile. "And you bring a lot of energy. It keeps things interesting." That made Naruko brighten instantly. "Then it's a good team," she declared, as if solving a great mystery. And just like that, the awkward moment dissolved into something simple and warm: shared snacks, gentle laughter, and the quiet understanding that even the most embarrassing mistakes can turn into memories worth keeping when kindness is at the center of them. It was starting to bother Naruko in a way she couldn't easily ignore, so she decided to do what she always did when something felt uncertain. She faced it directly. "Oh, an ice cream stand. Here goes." "Come on," Cynthia said, gently tugging on Naruko's sleeve. The usually composed champion looked unexpectedly cheerful, almost childlike in her excitement. "Say it. Just say yes." "I don't think we should have ice cream today," Naruko said carefully. "Oh no. That face." Cynthia's eyebrows knitted together, her expression falling slightly. "What? Why?" "Don't back out now, Naruko." "It's just that." Naruko hesitated, clearly struggling as she noticed Cynthia's disappointed look. "Come on, you can do it." Naruko let out a small sigh and surrendered with a soft smile. "Because? Doesn't today feel more like a sorbet kind of day instead?" The tension melted away instantly. Cynthia blinked, then laughed in relief. "That actually sounds perfect." XX. Naruko had a habit of snuggling, something Cynthia discovered the first time she allowed her to sleep over in her room. Snuggling, shifting in her sleep, and occasionally kicking the blanket off in the middle of the night. Some might have found it troublesome, but Cynthia had grown fond of it. Naruko always looked so peaceful while sleeping, with a soft, steady breath and a relaxed expression that made her seem younger and completely at ease. It was the kind of innocence that made Cynthia smile without even realizing it. One morning, Naruko suddenly flinched awake. "Hey," she said, rubbing her cheek while looking around in confusion. "What was that for?" "Sorry," Cynthia said with a sheepish smile, pulling her hand back after gently poking her cheek. "You just look so cute when you're sleeping." Naruko paused, then crossed her arms with a small huff, trying very hard not to look embarrassed. "That's not a reason," she muttered, though her tone had softened. XX. Cynthia was remarkable with Pokémon. That was an understatement, really. She had a calm understanding of her partners that made her strength feel natural rather than forced. Her Garchomp was especially powerful, moving with confidence and precision that came from years of trust and teamwork. Naruko watched in awe whenever it trained. Seika, Naruko's gentle fox-like companion, was just as spirited in her own way, curious, proud, and full of personality. One afternoon, Cynthia suggested a friendly training exercise so their partners could learn to work together. It sounded like a great idea. In practice, it turned into a lively misunderstanding. Garchomp and Seika circled each other, each trying to show off their strength and speed in a playful way that quickly became a bit too competitive. They didn't mean any harm, they simply both wanted to be the one to impress the other. Naruko watched with a blank, slightly helpless expression while Cynthia stepped forward quickly, trying to guide them back into calm teamwork. "All right, Garchomp, that's enough for now," Cynthia said gently, placing a reassuring hand on her partner. Then she turned to Seika. "And you too. Let's all take a breath together." Both Pokémon paused, blinking at her words. After a moment, they settled down, sitting side by side, still a little stubborn, but no longer trying to outdo each other. Naruko finally exhaled in relief. "Maybe next time," she said softly, "we start with teamwork. Before competition." Cynthia smiled. "Agreed. That sounds like a much better plan." 9. Seika puffed out proudly, patting away with her head held high. Cynthia shot Naruko a look, and Naruko only shrugged, mouthing, "It was your idea." She sighed and shook her head before turning toward her Pokémon. "Garchomp," she said gently, placing a hand on the strong dragon/ground Pokémon's shoulder. "I know you and Seika have a rivalry, but can you try to set it aside just for this exercise?" The shark-like Pokémon looked down at her trainer. She seemed reluctant, but after a moment, she gave a small nod. "And Seika," Cynthia continued, turning toward the Ninetales who had just finished carefully grooming her fur. "Can you please work with Garchomp if she apologizes?" At this, Seika gave an incredulous look, but Cynthia held a steady, encouraging gaze, silently asking her to trust the plan. At the word apology, Seika's ears perked up, and the fire-type Pokémon looked almost excited as Cynthia added, "And I'm sure if you both work together, we can prepare some special treats afterward." 9. Seika responded, suddenly interested. Both Pokémon immediately looked more willing, their rivalry softened by the promise of a shared reward. Naruko watched from the side, sighing softly. It had taken 2 months for Seika to warm up to her as a friend, yet Cynthia had somehow gained her trust in far less time. Her hand went to her forehead in exaggerated exhaustion. "I'm surrounded by strong personalities," she muttered with a small smile. XX. The word belonging was something Naruko had never truly understood before. When she first arrived in this world, she had lost everything familiar, her rank, her name's weight, her past goals. All she had were the clothes she stood in and a heart full of confusion and determination. Now, as she stood among ancient ruins while Cynthia explored nearby, Naruko quietly thought about how strange life could be. Why had Cynthia stayed with her? What did Naruko really offer her, besides a few jokes, a bright spirit, and an unstoppable will to keep moving forward? When Naruko finally asked her this, Cynthia simply looked at her, took her hand gently, and placed it over her own heart. A steady, calm heartbeat met Naruko's touch. "This is what matters," Cynthia said softly. "Trust. Companionship. Friendship." Naruko blinked, surprised by the warmth in her chest, not something she could explain with strength or skill. It was something simple and steady. Something like home. XX. Naruko wasn't someone who thought of herself as thoughtful in romantic stories or grand speeches. If you asked anyone who knew her, they would say she was energetic, impulsive, and always ready to act before she overthought anything. And they wouldn't be wrong. But even someone like Naruko could learn to care in quiet, meaningful ways. Which is why Cynthia was surprised one evening to find Naruko carefully preparing a small celebration inside their shared space. The table was neatly arranged with simple homemade food, soft lighting from small candles, and a handmade card placed carefully at the center. Naruko turned quickly when Cynthia entered, eyes widening. "Cynthia. You're early. This was supposed to be a surprise." Her shoulders dropped when she realized she'd been discovered. "Ah. Well, so much for that." Cynthia smiled softly. Naruko scratched her cheek, then stepped forward a little awkwardly. "I just wanted to make something nice. For a friendship celebration. Before she could say more, Cynthia reached out and pulled her into a warm, gentle hug. Naruko froze for a second, then relaxed, returning the hug with a small, relieved smile. When they finally stepped back, Naruko placed the handmade card into Cynthia's hands. Inside was a simple message: "Thank you for staying." Cynthia read it quietly, then smiled. "I'm glad we met," she said. Naruko grinned. "Yeah. Me too. XX." Naruko's favorite part of being with Cynthia, besides everything they shared together, was something surprisingly simple. Holding hands. Not in any grand or complicated way. Just during walks through new places, or while standing side by side in quiet moments. Naruko liked the feeling of it, steady, reassuring, real. Sometimes she would gently take Cynthia's hand without saying anything, and Cynthia would simply squeeze back in understanding. For Naruko, it wasn't about anything more than connection. It was about knowing she wasn't alone anymore. Naruko often found herself thinking about hands. Not in a heavy or frightening way, but in a soft, thoughtful way, like watching sunlight move across a room and noticing how gentle it could be. There were hands that worked hard in the world, hands that helped others grow, and hands that comforted friends when they felt sad. Naruko liked to believe that people could always choose what kind of kindness their hands would bring into the world. She looked down at her own hands now and flexed her fingers lightly, as if checking they were still the same hands she had always known. Then she smiled to herself and leaned closer to the person beside her on the couch. Cynthia was seated comfortably next to Naruko in a quiet hotel room, where a television played softly in the background. It had been a long day, the kind filled with stories of trainers, Pokémon, and distant journeys. Naruko relaxed and let the calm settle in. Cynthia tilted her head slightly. "What do you think of Ash Ketchum?" Naruko blinked, shifting her attention away from the screen. "Oh, him? I think he seems like a really kind trainer. Brave, too. Why do you ask?" Cynthia folded her hands neatly in her lap, thoughtful. "He keeps appearing at important moments in the Pokémon world. Meeting rare Pokémon, traveling to many regions. It's quite unusual for someone so young." Naruko nodded slowly. "That does sound amazing. It feels like he's always where he needs to be." "You didn't answer my question fully," Cynthia said with a small, knowing smile. Naruko laughed a little. All right. I think he's someone who cares deeply about Pokémon and people. That's a good thing." Cynthia's expression brightened. "Exactly. And I've heard even more interesting things, about legendary Pokémon he may have encountered." Naruko's eyes widened in surprise. "Really? That sounds almost unbelievable." Cynthia chuckled gently at Naruko's reaction. "I had the same reaction when I first heard it." Naruko leaned back against the couch cushions, thinking hard. "So, why bring him up to me?" "Because," Cynthia said warmly, "I think we should visit him in Unova." Naruko paused, letting the idea settle in her mind like a puzzle piece clicking into place. "A visit? That could be interesting." Cynthia nodded. It would be a chance to understand his journey better. Naruko smiled, feeling a spark of curiosity and excitement. "Then let's go. I'd like to meet someone like that." Cynthia reached out and gently rested her hand beside Naruko's, a quiet gesture of friendship and shared purpose. Naruko responded by placing her hand there too, comfortable and steady. Outside, the world felt wide and full of possibilities, as if every path was waiting patiently to be explored. And Naruko, with her bright curiosity and open heart, was ready for the next adventure. That's all for now, guys. Thanks for watching and sticking around, it means a lot. More coming soon, so don't go anywhere. Stay tuned. Much love to all of you. Regards. 6 Path Weeb.